Just received a text, if you will, from a very good friend of mine who is a medical practitioner himself, who says the right to dignity is a constitutional right. It's an ethical duty that binds both doctors and nurses under the Health Professions Act and the Nursing Act. When patients are left to fend for themselves, where's the Nursing Act? Where's the Health Professions Act? Where's the Constitution? And why is it? Why is it that this is a society that if you don't have the right connections and the money in the bank, you get to be treated with disdain and disrespect? Up next, we're going to speak to our former colleague, Tom London.
This is Breakfast with Bongani Bingwa
on 702.
Let's walk the talk.
That's the story we've been covering this morning. And of course, as I've said a little earlier on, Tom London and I were colleagues right here at 702 some years ago. I was the lowly overnight news reader. He hosted the early breakfast show and we're friends on Facebook. And so when I was tagged and I saw these videos, I, like many people who know you and hold you in some regard and with some affection, Tom, was absolutely shattered. How are you?
How's it, Bongani? Yeah, I remember our days working together with fondness. Thank you. I'm getting better every day. Thanks.
What prompted you to post the videos? Just give us a bit of background for anybody who may have missed the videos, who may not have seen them, who's only picking up the story as we've been talking about it this morning.
Firstly, it took me 13 days before I had enough and got, I suppose, what we as South Africans call gatfol. I was rushed to Helen Joseph on the 25th of August. I couldn't breathe. I actually just couldn't get breath into me. I was rushed to casualty, where I was put on oxygen immediately. The doctors were very good there. They diagnosed that I had a pleural effusion, water in my lung cavity or fluid in my lung cavity very quickly. They tapped my chest cavity, pulled 600 milliliters of fluid out, told me there was probably another liter and a half in there. They also gave me some anti-inflammatories, which I didn't know and I'm intolerant to. So day 2, I started having stomach problems. I was still in casualty. I was in casualty for 2 nights and 3 days. There's only one toilet for all the patients in casualties. There are no beds for people. So, you're trying to find an examination table to sleep on or the floor or wherever it might be for 3 days. But the clinical care was good. And I thought, I'm going to stick this out. But then on day 3, I was third in line to get to the loo and I couldn't control my bowels anymore and I defecated in my pants. I then spent the day lying in my poo pants. And at the end of the day, I lost my sense of humor and I started getting upset with the doctors and I was quite vocal about it. And then they put me in a ward. I was admitted to Ward 8, medical admissions ward, where I was still on antibiotics. I was given a bed. Very terrible mattress, very terrible bed, very terrible infrastructure, but that wasn't my problem. I thought I can put up with the bed, I can put up with the broken taps, I can put up with the peeling paint, I can put up with the unfriendly nurses who became friendly after a few days, as long as I'm getting the correct clinical care.
Yeah.
And so I was then given a doctor. I thought the doctor I had was a good doctor. I was happy with my doctor and the progress and the tests that were done. To get a CT scan at Helen Joseph can take you 5-6 weeks, but they expedited it. So I ended up having a scan about 12 days in. However, 2 things happened. One, I woke up the day before I decided to leave, and a doctor came to my bedside. She came over to the table in front of my bed, looked me in the eyes, never said hello, never introduced herself, didn't acknowledge me. Wrote in my files for 10 minutes, then came to my bed and said, I'm the on-duty doctor today. By the way, the doctor you've had is no longer your doctor. You've got a new doctor. And I asked why my old doctor had left, and she said, well, the less complicated patients had been given to someone else, and he's got exams to write, and there's a new doctor. However, I never saw the new doctor. 24 hours later, I still hadn't seen my new doctor. Now, the problem I had, Bongani, was the treatment that I was getting from mostly doctors, but the real problem I had, and this is not even a Tom London story, this is a patient in Helen Joseph and healthcare system story, it's every other person. I was watching how other people were getting treated by the doctors. There was no compassion. And people say, a few give everyone a bad name. No, I'm talking about 9 out of 10 doctors that I saw, and I probably saw 80 doctors cross my path and deal with people around me. None of them said good morning to their patients. None of them asked their patients how they were. All of them spoke to their patients with disrespect. And I started getting very upset by this. I thought, hold on, you're starting to, impact on human dignity and rights.
Yeah.
And not only that, it's very hard to recover under those circumstances. It's impossible to sleep. The food's not great. You can't have a bath. And then when the doctors can't treat you like a decent human being and they can't be nice to you, it starts becoming very, very difficult to recuperate.
So,
the final straw, yes.
Yeah, no, the final straw? Go ahead.
The final straw for me was there was a guy diagonally opposite me by the name of Nicholas van Buurik. He had liver failure, so he was terminal. I heard a senior doctor say that he was terminal. I knew that he was going to die 2 days before he died. But on the morning that I decided to leave, at about 4 o'clock in the morning, I heard his chain-stoked breathing. I've been around people who've died before, and I knew this guy's going to die. Anyway, he went into arrest. Crash carts were called. Doctors descended like a television or a movie ER episode, and they attempted to resuscitate the guy who was clearly never going to come back for half an hour. I was hearing things like suction stat, this, that, and I thought, but what kind of games are you guys playing, all right? Because you yourselves know that this guy's terminal, and now you're spending resources and time trying to bring back a dead person who's never going to come back to life, and it looked like a comedy series. That guy that died in the bed diagonally opposite me, 2 days before, he had a lumbar puncture done on him by 5 doctors. While they were doing the lumbar puncture on him, and they were restraining him, he was screaming like a wild animal. The doctors weren't calming him down or discussing what they were doing. They were talking about their bonuses. They were talking about their cars. And one of the doctors was talking about a great new restaurant that opened up in the area that was now taking up a lot of his food budget.
Gosh.
And I thought, my goodness, hold on a moment. This young generation of doctors that our medical schools are producing are disconnected emotionally in every way from the patients. And it's a farce.
And one of the things you said in your videos, Tom, was that it took about 20 minutes before anybody even attended to what was now obviously the body of the patient when he died.
No. When he died, they left. And he was left in that bed diagonally opposite me for hours, not 20 minutes. It may have been 3 to 4 hours. I was lying in my bed at the time with this dead guy diagonally opposite me. Now, just a backstory, in all the time I was in Ward 8, there were about 100 flies, I would say. They were like resident flies flying around the ceiling. They didn't bug me because they never came down to my level or ground level. But when this guy died, those flies then went to his body. And about another 200 flies came through the window. So there must have been 300-odd flies running around on this dead guy. And then they started flying on me. And so I was sitting there trying to get flies off my drinking water glass, brushing flies off my arms. And that's when I decided I've had enough of the inhumane treatment by the doctors in this hospital. I'm not happy with flies going from a dead person to me. And I'm also not happy with my safety because the night before, while I was sleeping, my cell phone was stolen from me from next to my head. It
Tom,
was only, yes.
We spoke, sorry to interrupt you there. We spoke a little earlier to the Chief Director of Communications in the department, Mutaletale Modiba, who says, well, you could tweet, but you could also have emailed support@gauteng.gov.za. Would that have helped, do you think?
Well, firstly, that information is not next to your bedside, so you don't know that you can do that. And secondly, I'm going to talk for other South Africans here. Most South Africans, and I include myself during this experience, are very scared of speaking up, scared of what the consequences might be, scared of treatment being stopped, scared of worse treatment by the doctors. And so there's a culture of fear in the patients that we don't want to speak up because we don't have the capability to go out into a private hospital, and so we have to take the treatment, and we're too scared to speak up. Just so happens that I'm a former broadcaster, and I know how to kick up dust, but most South Africans don't know how to make a viral video, you know?
and that's why we spoke to you. Look, we're glad you're on the mend. We're glad that, the generosity of so many of your friends and just people who care have at least allowed you to get some help at a private facility now. And Tom will certainly be keeping an eye on your story. And I suppose the broader picture is to say thank you for highlighting what wasn't just your problem, but what many others who are in a similar position as yours were not able to speak out about. Tom London, a former broadcaster, sharing his experience. Thank you, Tom. Sharing his experience at the Helen Joseph Hospital.
Current events, developing stories,
Tough questions.
your voice making a difference.
This is Breakfast with Bongani Bingwa.